Greetings and welcome to Sports101, that show that discusses sport beyond the X's and O's. Here we like to look at our conversation of sport, and we include the history, past, present, and also the future. We also look at things from a cultural and people perspective. I'm your host, Jamar Harp. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at Coach_Harp412. And also you make sure you get social with Sports101 and all the SportsZone Chicago shows. You can follow SportsZone Chicago on Twitter at SportsZone CHI, Facebook at SportsZone Chicago, and Instagram at SportsZone Chicago. Remember, SportsZone Chicago is a sports talk app. You can watch and listen to my show, Sports 101, Sean and Maya in the morning, or many other shows that SportsZone Chicago offers. You can follow us on YouTube, and if you miss a show, don't worry about it. You can download the SportsZone Chicago app. You can find our SportsZone Chicago app on the iTunes, Google, and Amazon Play stores. This week, I would like to introduce you to our topic, and we'll be discussing the HBCU football kickoff. This past Sunday, the HBCU football season kicked off after a year of being stagnant due to the pandemic, with Jackson State facing Edward Waters College. That game also marked the first game in the Coach Prime or Deion Sanders era at Jackson State. Deion Sanders, as everyone knows, is the new head coach of Jackson State. He has a much acclaimed NFL All-American and Hall of Fame career, as well as a great career in Major League Baseball. Deion Sanders was named their 21st head coach recently and has been making waves by attacking the historically predominantly white institutions that play in your Power 5 conferences and competing and winning student athletes. Edward Waters College, who they faced, is an NAIA school, soon to be Division II. I want everyone to note that Jackson State is FCS or 1AA, and they competed against an NAIA team, which is kind of slightly below Division II. We'll talk about NAIA in a moment. So even though it was a tremendous win, it was also a lot of great things done by the Edward Waters coaching staff, even though the game was 53-0, to keep it in that manner. As you can see, the banner placed here by my Jedi Sensei, Maya Kai. This is the picture of the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics, or the NAIA. The NAIA was founded in 1937 by Dr. James Naismith. This is the same James Naismith that invented basketball in Kansas, and he staged the first NAIA, or the first collegiate basketball tournament, in 1937. Here's a picture of James Naismith, and you can see him holding the ball that they used in that era. A quick fun fact about James Naismith is one of his last students was John McClendon. John McClendon went on to fame as a head coach at North Carolina Central University, where he invented the fast break offense and played in that classic closed door game against Duke University in the early 60s. This tournament that James Naismith created was once a year. It was 1 year before the NIT and 2 years before the NCAA started playing their tournament. The goal of the NAIA tournament was to establish a forum for small colleges and universities to determine a national basketball champion. You got to remember, at this time in the early 1940s and the late 1930s, there wasn't big television. All the press was through print media. And the NCAA, all these organizations were just starting to form. So what happened was, at the beginning, there was a true focus on just smaller schools. So you saw the NAIA be just as prominent as the NCAA. However, when the NCAA became more monetized and got revenues from television as well as apparel and getting state-funded stadiums, they were able to move to a different level. Therefore, uneven in the playing field, with the NAIA kind of dropping off and the NCAA shooting up to be the standard of collegiate athletic conferences that we know today. On March 10th, 1940, the National Association for Intercollegiate Basketball, the NAIB, was formed in Kansas City, Missouri. Again, this was by Dr. Naismith and his colleagues' design, because they wanted the small schools in that area to compete for a national championship. Again, at that time, collegiate sports was regional and was based off of small schools. So all your athletes were from the same area. They could make money that way. You didn't have to worry about travel or recruiting and a lot of things that happen now in the monetized era of collegiate athletics. In 1948, the NAIB tournament was the first intercollegiate postseason tournament to feature a Black student athlete. The Black student athlete picture here is Clarence Walker of Indiana State, who was coached by John Wooden. Most people know John Wooden from his fame at UCLA, but at this time he was starting out in the Midwest, and we know the tensions of America at that time in regards to race relations and segregation. So the NAIA were the first people to allow African Americans to play before the NCAA. So that's a quick historical fact that shows the prevalence in the NAIA and the thinking that they had. In 1947, Wooden had withdrawn from the tournament because they didn't allow Walker to play. And again, that wasn't that long ago. My mother was born in 1947. So you can see how society and sport kind of parallel each other. And once we change sport and get certain things in that, hopefully that'll transgress into the modern society as sport integrated earlier and things change in society somewhat. Hopefully this new wave with student athletes returning to historically Black colleges and universities will spawn an era where monetized deals will go to these institutions, therefore creating a paradigm shift in college athletics. The association furthered its commitment to African-American athletes in 1953 when it became the first collegiate association to invite historically Black colleges and universities into its membership. Before 1953, historically Black colleges kind of played independent. Again, they were either state or religious institutions where sport wasn't a major factor. So in 1957, Tennessee A&I, now Tennessee State, became the first historically Black institution to win a collegiate basketball national championship. In 1959, Southern University, who is now a member of the Southwestern Athletic Conference, or SWAC, became the first HBCU to win the NAIA baseball championship. Edward Waters, Jackson State's opponent this past weekend, currently competes in the NAIA, yet is moving to the more lucrative NCAA at the Division II level. So even if this game was played next year, it would still be in favor of Jackson State because, yes, Edward Waters will be an NCAA division member now at the Division II level, but there's still rules that stipulate the differences between the BCS, the FCS, and Division II. And most notably, that's the number of scholarships. So as the BCS, you're allowed over 80 scholarships. FCS, you're allowed 65. Division II, you have the equivalency of 34 to 36. So it's very hard for Division II teams to beat Division I teams, let alone the NAIA score. Hence, supporting my statement that even though the score was 53-0, Edward Waters' coaching staff really did a good job because it could have got, very astronomical in number if they didn't do certain things to kind of slow that game down. The NCAA, again, has more monetary opportunities, more scholarships, more sports, and tougher eligibility requirements. With these limitations, Edward Waters did not do that bad if you look at the game holistically outside of the score. When we break down the game, looking at Jackson State prior to the game, there was a quarterback battle between Jalen Jones and Quincy Casey for Jackson State. If you look at the pictures right here, Jalen Jones is a transfer from the University of Florida, and Casey is a redshirt freshman. Jalen Jones was a 3-star coming out and signed with Florida. However, his passing skills did not matriculate to that of the standard of the coaching staff in the Southeastern Conference. So he saw his reps diminish, and therefore he decided to transfer to Jackson State last year. Both were behind Shedeur Sanders, who took the majority of the first team reps. However, Shedeur Sanders is ineligible to play. Most people know that high school athletes who graduate early can attend college and practice in a spring game. However, due to the unique situation this year, due to the COVID pandemic, there's actually games being played. So the NCAA rules stipulate that a high school athlete cannot compete in college athletics until his class graduates from high school. Normally, this is not an issue as the games were played in August. However, due to the pandemic, there's games going on right now. So the perennial starting quarterback wasn't even playing. So what you saw this weekend was a battle between the second and third string quarterbacks of Jackson State. Jones, if you want to break down the two quarterbacks, Jones was a much more experienced runner than a thrower, which is one of the reasons he transferred from Florida. And Casey is more of a passer. Even though he is a greater passer, he still lacks an ability to Shedeur Sanders, who turned down the offer from Florida Atlantic. And playing in his dad's offense before, is very familiar with it, along with having the last name. Everybody, including Ray Charles, can see that Shedeur Sanders will be the starting quarterback when Jackson State begins to play in the fall. Given a quick repack of the game, the Jackson State got the ball rolling, and at the 11:46 mark in the first quarter, Jones scored on a 6-play, 2-minute 15-play drive with a 6-yard touchdown pass to Warren Newman. This started a wave of scoring for Jackson State. A lot of that scoring was done off of mistakes by Edward Waters. There was one instance where they didn't field a kickoff. There was fumbles on kickoff, and then a tremendous amount of 3-and-outs. Edward Waters, I don't think, crossed the 50-yard line until late in the third quarter. Late in the game, Glenn Messick came in, and he also helped the scoring for Jackson State by adding a 23-yard field goal. If you look at superlatives from the offense, Warren Newman, he also grabbed a team-high 8 receptions for 76 yards and 1 touchdown. And Dalen Baldwin also recorded 9 receptions for 70 yards. The redshirt freshman came in the second half, and he played sparingly. However, they didn't really throw the ball downfield. They were kind of pretty much being vanilla as they start their conference play in the Southwestern Athletic Conference next week against Mississippi Valley State. So they just really didn't give you a lot of offense to see, inside zone, outside zone, just working on mesh concepts and basic short yardage routes. Casey again came in, and he did throw a 23-yard touchdown pass in the third quarter. However, the game was out by then, so it was very hard to determine his ability in regards to Jones, who started. Remember, both of these guys are going to be backups and third string to Shedeur Sanders when he becomes eligible in the fall. Looking at Jackson State defense, preseason first team all SWAC linebacker Keontae Hampton stated after the shutout, and they did play extremely well. They shut a lot of the Edward Waters concepts down. They flowed to the ball as a team and showed good discipline in the box in regards to their eyes and not over pursuing. Keontae Hampton stated, "We had a blast out there." He recorded a team high 7 tackles and dropped the interception. So again, what Jackson State is working on is one of Deion's monikers. You look good, you feel good, you feel good, you play good, you play good, you earn good, you live good. So they're working on their confidence right now and installing a new era of Jackson State football previous to what they had in the 1970s. If you recall, in previous episodes, we talked about the 1975 draft, who out of the top 10 picks had 2 players from Jackson State, Walter Payton, and who was drafted by the Chicago Bears, and Dr. Doom, William Brazil, a linebacker from the Houston Oilers. The final score again of the game was Jackson State 53, Edward Waters 0. Edward Waters, even though playing NAIA football, they showed a lot of skill on defense. They were able to stop Jackson State not often, but a few times on 3-and-outs, which would tremendously help slow the game down and keep the score under 60. After speaking with their head coach, I was alerted that Edward Waters had transfers as well. Remember when we talk about the eligibility requirements? So oftentimes you find people transferring from FCS or sometimes BCS who run out of time or just have to leave the school or graduated. You may see them at a Division II school. So Edward Waters has a few Division II two players, quarterbacks as well, and their first two quarterbacks couldn't play. Um, with the addition of the FCS transfers that they have in the fall, they're going to be better too. So again, I can't wait to see both Jackson State and Edward Waters in the fall with all their transfers, and Jackson State, trying to see if they're going to take Alcorn State out as the SWAC champions, and Edward Waters going into new territory as a member of this Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, a Division II conference which hosts teams such as Valdosta State, Albany State, Fort Valley State. Valdosta State's in a different conference. Tuskegee, Central State in Ohio, which is a different story, and now Edward Waters College. If we look at some superlatives from the game, total yards gained, Edward Waters had 104 yards, and Jackson State had 435. Edward Waters passed for 83 yards, while Jackson State passed for 252. This is very alarming. Again, the Southwestern Athletic Conference is known for its quarterbacks and receivers, going back from Willie Totten and Jerry Rice to Tavares Jackson, the recent quarterbacks at Grambling, the great Bruce Eugene, Doug Williams, Matt Reed, etc. There was a litany of great quarterbacks and receivers. So most times in the Southwestern Athletic Conference, you see closer to 500 yards. This number also indicates the need for Shedeur Sanders, who has a great familiarity with the offense. And as Coach Prime says, he saw him drive, and he can drive that car very well. Edward Waters had 21 rushing yards, while Jackson State had 183. And when we look at penalties, Edward Waters had 7 for 55, while Jackson State had 8 for 60. This is also something that both teams will want to get down as you get into conference play. Games get more parity to them, so the smaller minute details can be the difference in a win or a loss. And again, 8 penalties can definitely be the difference of losing multiple games in a season. And both coaches plan to fight for conference championships in the 2021 season. Edward Waters only had 8 first downs, while Jackson State had 27. Now, that's a number that most people look at and think, okay, Jackson State had a lot of first downs. But in actuality, it just shows that they didn't make any big plays. Teams that make big plays oftentimes scare defenses, and the defenses will do things to prevent you from scoring. If you look at what the Kansas City Chiefs faced in the playoffs, people play cover 4 or palms coverage, dropping very deep, so they couldn't work their deep crossers, and they had to go to shallow routes. So with that not being done by either team, you would want to see more big plays, hence first downs. So Jackson State being the FCS team playing in the SWAC, which is a passing conference, Alcorn State, who has won the conference the last 3 years and played in the Celebration Bowl, has always led it in passing. So that number will increase, or should increase, once Shedeur Sanders gets the reins in the fall of 21. Third down conversions, Edward Waters was 1 of 13, and Jackson State was 5 for 11. Again, Edward Waters being an NAIA school and playing with their third string quarterback, you kind of expect that. But Jackson State being the FCS team playing the NAIA school, you would want their percentage to be greater on third down conversions, which means Edward Waters was stopping them when they needed to stop them. If you look at 5 out of 11, that's very close to 50%. So with a Division I team, even though it's FCS playing the NAIA team, you would expect that percentage to be a lot higher. Fourth downs, Edward Waters was 1 of 3, and Jackson State was 1 of 1. Edward Waters obviously start going for it on fourth down later in the game as the score got out of crease, as the score got out of hand, and Jackson State had 1 fourth down conversion to keep the clock moving. In time of possession, Edward Waters possessed the ball for 28 minutes and 35 seconds, while Jackson State possessed the ball for 31 minutes and 25 seconds. Again, if you look very closely, the time of possession is very similar, and that is an alarming number because, again, Jackson State is the FCS team, so you would expect them to have bigger, stronger athletes due to the fact that they do compete on a Division I level. They have 65 full scholarships and greater facilities, amenities, etc. You would expect the time of possession to be much lower because you would expect them to get big plays, i.e. the linemen are pushing on Edward Waters' D lineman off the ball. The D linemen are pushing the Edward Waters offensive lineman off the ball. Receivers are blowing past the Edward Waters defensive backs. But for that time of possession to be so close, that means not only was Edward Waters stopping Jackson State, henceforth 5 of 11 on third down conversions, but throughout the game, they were holding the minuscule games to get the third down. So that means in first and second down, Jackson State was averaging less than 2 yards or 3 yards a play because you only need 10 yards. So if you can't get it on third down, obviously there's a greater percentage that you were in a 3rd and 5 or greater versus 3rd and 3 or greater. And that's a credit to Coach Greg Ruffin and the Jackson State staff. Looking at next week, the Jackson State Tigers open Southwest Athletic Conference play on Saturday at Hearn versus Mississippi Valley State. Mississippi Valley State is led by a perennial mastermind on the defensive end, Vincent B. Dancy, who was a former Jackson State player and won the Southwest Athletic Conference title under Rick Comagee, who also on the staff was Coach Greg Ruffin. So there's a lot of ties within these games, especially this Saturday, again, as Coach Vincent Dancy plays his alma mater and where he started his coaching career. Coach Dancy played arena ball briefly and then came back and worked in wildlife and fishery within the state of Mississippi Parks and Services and got the coaching bug and came and Coach Comagee hired him as his former head coach, and he was able to win a championship. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll talk more about Edward Waters College when we come back and their new head coach, as well as HBCU realignment. Edward Waters is going to Division II, and we're going to talk about, in particular, the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, which we need to survive, and things that could possibly happen if, hopefully it does not happen, that conference dissipates. So again, please stay with us, and we'll be right back. This is Jamar Harp with Sports 101.
Black History Month is huge. It's a way for us to reconnect with our history.
Continue to celebrate and acknowledge the immense amount of contributions that Black people have made.
Black History Month is a celebration of culture.
Another opportunity for everyone to remember that we're all human.
And to have a month that reminds people that Black history is American history.
More than just having names and numbers and dates that are in a book.
To remember how important it is to be Black.
I think that the importance of Black History Month is that if you don't know where you came from, you're not going to be prepared for where you're going.
We all stand on the shoulders of somebody else. If I stand tall, it's because I'm standing on the shoulders of those who came before me.
Black history.
More than a month.
Hello, this is State Representative Juanita Brent of Ohio House District 12, here with an important announcement. February is Black History Month. Black History Month recognizes the contributions that African Americans have made throughout U.S. history. As we recognize the achievements of African Americans this month, we must also take time to appreciate and celebrate that Black History Month is American history. Did you know that the first Black History Month was celebrated 51 years ago in 1970? The 2021 Black History Month theme
Mississippi Veterans
is
Memorial Stadium.
The Black family, representation, identity, and diversity. It's important that we bring awareness to and celebrate the complex, rich, and diverse history of the Black family in the United States. To celebrate and learn more about Black History Month, you can visit AfricanAmericanHistoryMonth.gov. Thank you.
You see me.
You hear me.
Respect me.
Respect. Due regard for the feelings, wishes, rights, or traditions of others.
We don't have to agree, but I deserve to be heard. I stand my ground. Respect me.
We don't have to be friends, but I deserve your civility. I stand my ground. Respect me.
You don't have to understand my culture, but I deserve to be authentically myself. I stand my ground. Respect me.
I stand in defiance of your need to make me less in order for you to feel adequate.
I stand
aware that the America that you see and love today is a result of my free labor.
I stand
knowing that the contempt you have for me was not instigated by me, but perpetuated by the fear you have of me. I stand
surviving your many attempts to emasculate me. Indeed, I thrive despite it.
I stand realizing that you take many things from me, but I will not allow you to take my respect.
I am a man.
I am a proud man.
I am a proud black man.
I am authentically, undisputedly, unapologetically a proud black man.
I am authentically, undisputedly, unapologetically a proud black man.
I am authentically, undisputably, unapologetically a proud black man.
Respect me. I have done more than enough to deserve it, and still you withhold it.
The bill is past due.
You owe me.
Respect me. Respect me.
Respect me.
Here in Jackson, Mississippi, Deion Sanders getting ready for his first ball game as the head coach of the Jackson State University Tigers. And there's a familiar face, Troy Aikman.
Troy Aikman, I mean, obviously a former teammate of Deion, and that's pretty cool for him to come and show support of his former teammate. And, you know, saw him earlier talking to Shadir Sanders, who ineligible to play. But, you know, it's good to see Aikman be able to come out and show some support.
First and goal for Jackson State. Here's the give. And it's going to be a touchdown, Jackson State University. And on the carry for Jackson State is number 10, Warren Newman, the redshirt senior from New Orleans.
Nice little pop pass there from the quarterback, and Newman just does a nice job of being able to break a tackle. He's able to cut inside, and there's a couple guys that get maybe one or two hands on him, but he's able to just cut inside right away and be able to score.
Little pressure shown by Edward Waters and a little swing pass out to the opposite side. Jackson State's got some room all the way inside the 10-yard line to about the 5, and a great play and pickup by Dalen Baldwin. Paxton Branning on for a 23-yard field goal attempt. The hold is down, the kick is up, and it is good. So Jackson State now takes a 10-0 lead over Edward Waters here in the first quarter. Severe.
I'm Jamar Harp, and this is Sports 101. That show discusses sport beyond the X's and O's. Here at Sport 101, we like to talk about sport or the game from a people, places, and cultural perspective, looking through the lens of history in the past, present, and in the making. Please make sure you get social with Sports 101 and the rest of SportsZone Chicago's litany of amazing shows. You can follow SportsZone Chicago on Twitter at SportsZone CHI, Facebook at SportsZone Chicago, and Instagram at SportsZone Chicago. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel search Sports Zone Chicago. But most importantly, please download the Sports Zone Chicago app. Remember, any show that you miss from myself, Sean and Maya, What's Up Cuz, again, the Basement Monsters, Holitech Hall, so many great shows on Sports Zone Chicago. It's too many to name. You can find all of them on the iTunes, Google Play, or Amazon stores if you download the Sports Zone Chicago app. As we came back from break, you saw some highlights that, again, my sensei Maya put up, and you could kind of see, you didn't really see any grave differences in size per se. Again, even though we watched a short amount of highlights, you would expect the Division I team to be running past them and scoring in big plays, not shuffle passes from the 5-yard line, which indicates they march down the field. You would expect the team to be more explosive. One factor that led to them not being explosive is the gentleman that we're going to highlight right now, and this is Mr. Greg Ruffin. You can see his picture right here. Greg Ruffin is the head coach of Edward Waters College, and not only is he a great coach, but he's also the Sultan of Swag and Black college coaches. He has an array of different ensembles and styles that he can wear depending on season. So you can catch him with knickerbockers on the golf course or a pea coat in the wintertime. Coach Greg Ruffin. Again, upstart and future NCAA and SIAC member Edward Waters College is led by Coach Greg Ruffin. And on December 14th, 2017, he was officially named the 14th head coach of Edward Waters College. Edward Waters College had football and then stopped for over 50 years. So he actually came back and revitalized the program. With over 20 plus years of experience in turning programs around, he's been the head coach on a Division II and NAIA level and served as a position coach at several schools on the FCS, formerly 1AA level, which made him the perfect selection for Edward Waters College. Another thing that Coach Ruffin is known for is being an excellent recruiter. When he was a member of Jackson State under legendary coach Rick Comagee, he was a lead recruiter, and he helped Jackson State win the 2007 Southwestern Athletic Conference. In 2007, Jackson State, in their secondary, they had 4 BCS transfers from Notre Dame and some SEC schools. Rashad Anderson, who went on to play for the Kansas City Chiefs, was their main receiver. So they had a lot of talent that year. So again, when we look at what Deion Sanders is doing, which is a great thing, he's merely emulating what people have done before him and taking it to a greater level, which we love so much due to his notoriety. And hopefully we can get to the day where there is some more parity in college football when the North Carolina Central can pay UNC Chapel Hill and beat them. And with Deion Sanders doing what he's doing, that may come to fruition later than people think. Ruffin came to Edward Waters after spending 1 season at Bethune-Cookman University under Coach Terry Sims, where he served as a tight ends coach. Bethune-Cookman recently just made the move from the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference along with Florida A&M or FAMU University. Some of the main reasons they cited in this was travel, again, their proximity to all the schools in the Southwestern Athletic Conference. The furthest school away from them would be Prairie View A&M, which is maybe 6 hours away, versus in the MEAC, the furthest school away was Delaware State, which was always a plane ride. So again, Bethune-Cookman is involved in this triangle as well. Ruffin also had stops at Payne College, where again he resurrected a defunct program after over 50 years of being non-existent. Tuskegee, Shaw University, Ouachita Baptist, Lincoln of Missouri, and Texas Southern University, another Southwestern Athletic Conference school. Ruffin played fullback for Lane College in the mid-90s, and he led the way for NFL running back who played for the Carolina Panthers, Fred Lane. In his senior year, Lane had their best record in school history, going 9-1. So again, Coach Ruffin took some of his success from the playing field and brought it to the coaching box. Now, Edward Waters College, again, is an NAIA school attempting to move to NCAA Division II. People move around all the time, but the big issue right now within historically black colleges and universities is conference realignment. Unfortunately, the HBCU sports world is suffering from the aftermath of COVID, with that being having lower endowments and lower enrollments, as well as less opportunities to play in the front of the national media to create millions of dollars. The COVID pandemic is hitting historically black colleges and universities similar to small businesses. We're not having enough cachet to stay open. They're not closing, but they're cutting sports. All institutions, including HBCUs, are evaluating ways to, again, fight this. And one thing that people are scared of is certain members will be blackballed from playing in non-HBCU conferences. Why do people think that? Recently, Hampton and North Carolina A&T have left the MEAC as well for the Big South Conference. Now, unlike Bethune-Cookman and Florida A&M, who left to go to the Southwestern Athletic Conference, which is a historically black conference, Hampton and North Carolina A&T left for the Big South Conference. So the sentiment is that conferences may take one or two members of a defunct historically black college conference to come in, but they won't take many. The reason they'll take two is because you can always have a pairing, they can have a rivalry, and then it could be a novelty for the other schools to have a away game at these schools and have home games when the visiting band shows up. Again, the Big South has a television deal with ESPN, and they often get a higher rankings in the FCS playoffs. So most people at North Carolina A&T and Hampton decided to move to the Big South for these reasons, to get not more notoriety just for football, but for all its non-revenue sports as well. We have to remember these schools make decisions based off of all sports due to Title IX, which again dictates that you have the equal opportunity for men and women, and that's in scholarships and opportunity. So you see a lot of men's sports being cut. When we look at if the MEAC does fold, and there is this proverbial glass ceiling where the Big South won't absorb the other teams, most people say that they'll reclassify and go back to Division II. Now, this would be monumental, not only because they would lose that market share in revenue for being a Division I team, but that loss of revenue would means they will have to cut more sports. And again, due to Title IX, the men's sports will be cut before the women's sports. And most people say, well, that's not fair because the men's sports pay for the women's sports. But again, an equal opportunity, which is skewed by football, who has such a large staff size, it's very hard to get this kind of fair and accurate. So you see a lot of men's programs cut. It is notable that some of the realignments will produce lucrative matchups. You get maximum ticket revenue from large fan attendance and higher quality television games. When you look at Jackson State this year with the addition of Coach Prime, not only do they have a show that he's doing, a reality show based off of Jackson State, all their games in the spring will be shown on ESPN3, and they will be included on the ESPN3 network in the fall as well. This is monumental because oftentimes on ESPN3, they will pick and choose what HBCU game they will play, most likely from the FCS conferences, the MEAC or the SWAC. So to have a team on there all season is not only good for that conference, but black college football in general. Some other notable matchups that would cause a lot of money would be, of course, the two Florida schools that both entered the Southwestern Athletic Conference, Bethune-Cookman University and Florida A&M, as well as some new rivalries that have happened. SWAC powerhouses such as Southern University Grambling State, Alcorn State, Alabama A&M will now be going to Florida playing Bethune-Cookman and Florida A&M. So you'll see conference matchups you never saw before with as well as band matchups, which is another big thing in this area of sports. You'll see Southern versus Florida A&M football team and band. You'll see Grambling State versus Bethune-Cookman football team and band. So there's going to be a lot of money to be made off of this adding of Bethune-Cookman and Florida A&M. While they're making more money, the money's being decreased in travel because everybody's on the same kind of parallel, which is Interstate 10. So you can go, the only school, which is Bethune-Cookman, they're in South Florida. But if you went from Tallahassee and went straight across, you can pretty much get all the schools will be slightly above or below that line. Again, the new SWAC games will be very big, but then on the inverse, we'll look at now the MEAC conference. So this fall, you'll have no North Carolina A&T, no Hampton, no Bethune-Cookman, or no Florida A&M. So the premier matchups that once were are not there. Maryland Eastern Shore does not compete in football. So you have a very small number, which is 6 teams, which is the conference minimum to have a conference. So again, with Delaware State and people being unnerved that they may go to the Northeast Conference due to their close proximity to Pennsylvania, as well as the Northeastern corridor of New Jersey and New York, that happening would mean the end of the MEAC. When we look at those scenarios, again, they can be played out by what happened last year and what may happen in the future. So we already saw Bethune-Cookman go to the SWAC, but what if the MEAC folded and South Carolina State went to the Big South with North Carolina A&T? What if North Carolina Central went to the Big South? So again, that'd be 4 HBCUs in one conference. That's why people were scared of the glass ceiling. But again, they say if it's 2, then we can enjoy it. 4, they're not quite sure. Howard being with his repetition to academics, going to the Patriot League. That also would make sense because fellow DC neighbor Georgetown University, they compete in football in the Patriot League, and obviously basketball, they're in the they're in the Big East, I believe. So again, that will also help Howard. Bethune-Cookman and Florida A&M, again, discussing that move would be great because of their location to the south, and South Carolina State and North Carolina Central University joining the Big South would keep them within a great economic footprint as they're both in the Carolinas, and the Big South teams are from Virginia to South Carolina. So again, that would be great. When we look at the other members of the MEAC, they may not be so well. Hampton, for example, who's already in the Big South, they get to play in-state rivals Old Dominion and the University of Richmond. So again, they have a lot of FCS rivals within the state. Howard University, again, will most likely join the Patriot League, being in that Northeastern corridor, as well as being a private institution. Again, we've already discussed how they would ultimately play Georgetown University in a lot of competitions. So having inner city play and also will help save money. Now let's talk about the remaining 5 Michigan Athletic Conference institutions, which are Delaware State, Coppin State, University of Maryland Eastern Shore, Morgan State, and Norfolk State. All these institutions host football except Coppin State and the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. Coppin State has just started intramural football team in the hopes of starting football. However, there's opposition because Morgan State is also in Baltimore. So they don't think 2 football teams can work in the same city. University of Maryland Eastern Shore is on the Eastern Shore across the Bay Bridge. If you ever read across the Bay Bridge, it's an amazing ride. You'll be going through twists and turns and just keep straight. You won't fall off. But they're located on the Eastern Shore, and they used to host football. Their most famous player is NFL Hall of Famer Art Shell. Art Shell was an offensive lineman with the Oakland Raiders and later came on to be their head coach, one of the first historically black coaches in the National Football League. So again, most people think that these schools don't do very well in football, but they're good in basketball. And remember, all of these schools spurn from the Central Intercollegiate Athletic Association, or the CIAA. So most people think these 5 will drop back down to Division II and rejoin the CIAA. If they did reclassify and move back to Division II, ultimately that would mean some men and women's sports would be cut. But again, more men's sports will be cut due to Title IX. Of those teams, 5 of the 6 remaining are in the Northeastern Mid-Atlantic region, where 2 CIAA members also reside: Lincoln of Pennsylvania and Bowie State out of Bowie, Maryland. This will rekindle old rivalries, as all 4 Maryland historically black colleges and universities will battle for bragging rights, and Norfolk State when they encounter in-state rivals Virginia Union and Virginia State. Obviously, Norfolk State, if you don't know, is in Norfolk, Virginia, which is in the Tidewater, which is the eastern region of the state. And Virginia Union is located in Richmond, and Virginia State is located in Petersburg. That is all western Virginia on 95. So they will have, a kind of interstate rivalry between all those schools. In order to even the Central Intercollegiate Athletic Association's numbers in basketball and Olympic sports, again, that's a name for non-revenue sports, at 18 teams, a non-football playing member, which is the University of District of Columbia, which is located in Southeast DC, they have basketball but not football, will deserve to be added. So you will have 18 schools and you can have 2 divisions with 9 teams. Again, by granting UDC membership in the CIAA, the North Division will become more compact and will limit travel, also saving money. And the South Division will pretty much be within the Carolinas. In football, Norfolk State will go to the North Division, and Elizabeth City State, which is located in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, which is right below the Tidewater region, will go to the Southern region. Shawan University, who is non-historically black college and university, currently compete in the CIAA, will be dropped from associate membership in football. So they speculate, so that the CIAA football membership is even at 14 schools. So that'll be 14 schools for football and 18 schools for Olympic or non-revenue sports. Certain cross-divisional games would also be protected in basketball and the non-revenue sports by moving the southernmost Virginia teams in proximity to the corridors of I-85 and I-95, which are Virginia State and Elizabeth City, to the South Division. So by moving them to the Southern Division, they would reduce their travel to the North Carolina and South Carolina, and that would tighten the Southern Division and make that for a more competitive division. When we sum this all up, basically what we can see is that a lot of these dominoes depend on the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference. So it is my hope, being a graduate of North Carolina Central University, who is a founding member of the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, and recently, within the last 10 years, have won 3 football championships back-to-back, are coached by one of the top coaches in all of college basketball, LaVelle Moton, and who was the topic of the biopic piece being done by Chris Paul on ESPN Plus. I encourage everyone to watch that. We want these coaches and teams to stay Division I and compete with the Southwestern Athletic Conference. Having 2 Division I black college conferences not only creates competition amongst each other, but it allows more opportunities to compete with predominantly white institutions within their local areas. So similar to the SWAC and how they compete with the Southeastern Conference, the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference should be competing with the ACC and maybe the Big Ten in regards to talent because their geographical location, states so. So again, it is my hope that these teams can consolidate. I have a vision of University of Maryland Eastern Shore bringing back football, and let's say hypothetically, I was granted the opportunity to lead that program, being a native of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is not that far away. In my vision, I could easily attack the Midwest as well as New York, Connecticut, and the northeastern states for talent. It'll also give the MEAC 7 teams, so in case someone else did leave, it still would be a conference. And again, create more opportunities for student athletes and students in general to experience a historically Black college and university during football season. University of Maryland Eastern Shore has a great campus. They have a farm on campus. They have an aviation program. They do a lot of great things. However, the addition of football and honoring Art Shell and his great achievements there and moving on to the NFL, being busted into the Hall of Fame, I think that would be a great honor to himself as well as all his former teammates by resurrecting football at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. I hope that happens. And if it's not me, I know a great candidate that is also from Western Pennsylvania and has a greater cachet than myself that can take a cadre of his high school teammates from different years and also create the vision that I so stated earlier. So again, hopefully that none of these alignments come to fruition as Delaware State stays put and the MEAC brass, Dr. Dennis Thomas, Raynor Dito, Sonia Stills, and the MEAC administration put their heads together and try to add more teams. Again, Maryland Eastern Shore as a viable opportunity. They have a lot of land. Why not petition the NFL for Art Shell Stadium or Art Shell Athletic Complex? Petition the Baltimore Ravens. We see the Carolina Panthers build a facility at Wofford College in South Carolina, and they built dorms there just so they can practice for camp. So what if the Baltimore Ravens did the same thing at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, got away for training camp, we're in the same state, and we're doing something to benefit the college that one of their comrades went to, Art Shell. And when I say comrade, I mean NFL comrade. So again, the future is bright, not only for the Southwestern Athletic Conference, but the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference. And I greatly desire for this University of Maryland Eastern Shore to resurrect this football program. Again, it will do wonders for the state of Maryland as well as Black colleges in general. Thank you for tuning in to Sports 101. I'm your host, Jamar Harp. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter at Coach_Harp412 and make sure you get social with this show and the rest of the litany of shows on SportsZone Chicago. You can follow us on Twitter at SportsZone CHI, Facebook at SportsZone Chicago, and Instagram at SportsZone Chicago. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, search SportsZone Chicago, but most importantly, download the SportsZone Chicago app. Our app can be found in the iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon stores. Thank you for your time, and I will see you next Wednesday at 9 p.m. for our next episode of Sports 101. Have a productive sports week.
Compassion, noun. Sympathetic pity and concern for the sufferings or misfortunes of others. We're all born with it. It's in us. Don't believe me? When you hear a baby cry, something pulls at you. You want to ease that pain. You want to soothe that hurt. No one had to teach you that. It's called compassion, and it's in you. However, at some point you turned it off when it came to me. Me.
The cries of my soul have gone unheard, but today, you will hear me.
My heart has wailed a melody loud enough to shatter your ears and you ignored me. But this week, you will hear me.
This body has beat the drums of anguish, only to be silenced. But this month, you will hear me.
This year,
this decade,
this century,
I will be heard. And
you will be the one to hear me.
And when I am finally heard,
show compassion.
Show compassion.
Show compassion.
Remember, it's in you.